Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogboat333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4. The New Order, the Ruin as. Well, technically the RK Ukraine, but we are gonna make sure that we go ahead and make sure this thing falls out from under itself. In the last video, we really started working on kicking the foundation out from... Got you some socks so you can be in your comfy gamer girly era. Slay, I love that. I gotta send you your... I'll send you your Christmas gift along with the Valentine's Day thing. That actually reminds me. Anyway, I gotta set my timer. I'm back on Twitch, and for once I have people, well, I've had people in the past couple times, but I have a good audience with me today, so that's fun. Okay, Reich Neustadt. It's 24 to 75, so I'll keep that in mind. Despite the state's best efforts, banditry continues to increase across Ukraine. While there is, of course, a massive increase in the general level of chaotic action, the current focus of security forces is in the Mykolaiv region. There, the forces of U-SSR, a mockery if there ever was one, have risen and are far more organized than any in the administration previously thought. Local security commanders have, of course, taken action or reprisals against the bandits have increased tenfold. This ambush has been responded to by a number of assaults upon our garrison, ambushes upon our patrols, and other crimes on the bandits' part. Given the surprising intensity of the conflict, it is not yet clear whether the bandits or our security forces will emerge victorious. We can only hope for the former. Should an alternative course, it would spell disaster for any stabilization efforts in the future. For the sake of the RK, we hope that doesn't happen. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Let's go. Get fucked, Nazis. That works beautifully for us. Yeah, it's all coming along so far. I want to see how much we can secure really in this area. He dodged his way around patrols and through alleyways until he arrived at Hidden Market, where he was certain that something useful would show up. He decided to look for something about the Ukraine that he was never taught, but Key soon found himself wandering in circles, unsure of where to look for such a risky item, or if such an item even existed. As Key grew more sure of the futility of his search, an old man pointed at him and beckoned him over with a gnarled, twisted appendage that, many years ago, must have been a finger. At wit's end, Key shuffled over to the old cripple, who he knew as Taurus. "I'm looking for something, Key," he croaked, keeping a steady eye on the prospective customer. Key spoke slightly louder in a whisper. "I'm looking for anything about..." He looked around, apprehensive to sharing his quest with a stranger. In hushed tones, he continued. "About the history of Ukraine. I want to know what happened before the Germans. What was Ukraine before all this?" He gestured around vaguely, perhaps towards Kiev, perhaps towards Ukraine. Grinning, a half-toothless smile, Taras hobbled over a nearby trash heap, dug around for a moment, and then hobbled back over to Key, carrying a dusty brown package. Key held out the stolen pack of his father's cigarettes, which Taras took as he placed the package in Key's hand. "Slava Ukraini," Taras whispered. "Now get home, before you get both of us shot." He chuckled dryly as he leaned back to watch the young lad sprint off towards home. Needless to say, this was all highly illegal. As soon as Key returned home, he hid in his room and tore the packaging to get at what was inside, a book. On the cover in soft gray lettering on a dingy yellow background, the words, "The Complete History of Ukraine and Her People," shined through the grime. Key spent the night and the better part of the next morning reading intently through the old tome. Do not forget, with good intent, speak quietly of me. Hey, darling. How have you been? Oh, the kids? They're doing fine, don't worry. Urim is going to be such a good boy. Remember Maruska and Andrei, our neighbors? They're gonna have a baby. It's such good news, right, darling? Yaroslava Dobrovich stood in front of a clean and tidy grave of her husband, Volodymyr, talking like her beloved one was still here, hoping to hear something, yet always knowing the response wasn't coming. They knew each other since middle school, and right then it seemed that their happy, long family life was just destiny. Then the war began, and the Nazis crushed all their hopes. Volodymyr, just like thousands across the country, refused to give up. He joined the Soviet resistance and carried on the struggle, but he didn't live to see his dreams come true. A Wehrmacht soldier shot him down in the last months of the West Russian War. Just the thought of it hurt Yaroslava like a bullet in the head. She could still see him smiling, going right into the hand's death. She could still hear him promising that everything would be fine and he'd return. She could still remember his body, hanging in Central Square with a sign. Bandit. Now their eldest son would make the same mistake. No matter how hard she tried to convince Urima not to send himself to certain death, he lent only partial attention. He wanted to avenge his father. His rage burned so hot that he couldn't see the truth. The Germans would find him. They would torture him. They would kill him. All the struggle would be in vain, and all the pain would come again. Tears started to drop to the ground near the grave plate. She couldn't let him die, but she couldn't stop him. She slowly started to go home, with thoughts that tomorrow she'd have to clean the grave again. It was getting late anyways. Another uprising, another family member forced to fight a war that never ends. Get some coffee and be ready to be back. No problem. Well, let's go ahead and do the dissemination of free Marxist thought. The cornerstone of any revolution is the motivation of the revolutionary. This is why instead of focusing on the failures of the past, we must instead focus on inspiring the proletariat to break the chains of Nazi rule. We shall spread Marxist theories in the hopes of a free socialist Ukraine, where all can live side by side, where no person is denied food or shelter, and where the means of the production are owned by the workers. Winning over the general population will be a great boon to the socialist cause. The toiling peasantry and factory workers will hear stories of a great stately society that awaits them if they join the righteous revolution. The suffering people of the East will surely flock to our ranks once they hear of the bright future that awaits them in a free, communist Ukraine. How long do we got? We got about 10 days. Okay. Thoughts of the past filled Key's mind. What was there to know that he had been kept from? What people had been before him? What great men and women shaped the land he called home? Such questions in the schoolroom would end with his family being enslaved, or worse, in any attempts to pry the information from his father would end in stern, dismissive platitudes about his son's duty to his family and the price they could all pay for young Key's curiosity. His questions would remain unanswered over a supper of bread and cabbage stew. Sulking silently in his bedroom, Key was thinking of ways to learn the truth when he heard shouts from outside. Quickly, he stowed the book under his bedding and peeked his head over the windows to view the commotion outside. To his horror, an Opel Blitz had parked in front of a neighboring building. However, to his great relief, the unloaded soldiers headed instead to an adjacent warehouse, far away from Key and his treasonous thoughts. After a moment, and as suddenly as Key could duck and cover behind the wall, a series of shouts, cacophony of gunshots, and the hollow din of a small explosion filled his buzzing mind with ringing. Not more than half of a minute had passed before everything was still and quiet again. Key, after much consideration, peeked his head over above his cover, only to gaze upon the remnants of a dozen German soldiers, laying bloodied and ravaged in the dirt streets, lit only by a dim glow of a distant street lamp. The Opel Blitz was gone, and not a soul was to be seen. Key wondered, with a still rapidly beating heart, what he had just witnessed, and who would dare to be so brave as to assault a garrison. The thoughts of Ukrainians fighting for their homeland against an oppressive regime filled Key with a new feeling, one he could not remember feeling for a long, long time. Hope. Sundering your chains. Bless your freedoms with the blood of foemen's evil veins. We're getting a lot of events. Jesus. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, the most decorated sniper of the former Soviet Union, did not know how long she'd run after the firefight. Her memory was of a blur of branches and her own ragged breathing, of stumbling through deserted towns and villages with her useless arm dangling beside her. She was sure that the Hitlerites would soon be upon her. It was only when she arrived in Donetsk was she able to get herself in front of a doctor, a patriot but too young to have any real credentials, that she could think clearly again. And being able to think was an awful thing. "I don't know what to do now," she said. She was walking around the city shoreline, and her pus-stained, bandaged arm looped in front of her beneath her coat. "I feel useless." Her friend the doctor gave her a curious expression. "Oh? Well, I hope you aren't planning on doing anything that would waste all the supplies I use for your treatment." There was a pause. She stared out at sea. I'm sorry, that was a poor joke. When my husband Kitsenko died, I made a promise that I would destroy the Hitlerites until my dying breath. For so long I made good on that promise. I became a sniper. I became good at it. I felt like I was doing something for the future, and now... She attempted to squeeze her bandaged hand. She felt no movement. What do I do? Go back to the kitchen? Play the role of a good housewife until the Nazis kill us all? The doctor said nothing for a long time. She wondered if he was old enough to remember anything about the Union, or if he thought of it like a fairy tale kingdom, the dream of ages long past. Lyudmila, I can't promise you'll ever be as good a sniper as you were, but I don't think you'll ever stop fighting, even if it seems impossible. You're too stubborn to give up. She turned to see him give a weak smile. Do what you can. It is always worth it to fight for those who will inherit the earth long after we're gone. They remained for a while. Donetsk was not a beautiful city, but it was enough. Take some water. The Lobsters' War. Lobster Wars ended. Fun. And another event. We're just filled with events today. It's TNO. I don't know why I'm surprised. Keith spent less than a week reading from the great book and from front to back. The plight of his people captivated him and remained always on his mind. After finishing the book for a second time, Key went out for a walk. It was well past midnight, and the patrols were scarcely concerned under the cover of a moonless night. Even if they were, Key only thought of the partisans he saw the other day, and of his role as a great story. In the great story of a future Ukraine, he found himself at the banks of a Dnieper River, pondering what he could do, not knowing what he could do, let alone what he wanted to do. As he began the trek home, a familiar voice called out to him. Taras, from under a nearby bridge, and once again beckoned him near and tried to compel Kai to confide in him. Ceaseless questions regarding the book, his thoughts, his desires, his worth. Key dodged all the questions, tactfully giving Kern vague answers, revealing his inner confusion. Then, as he tried to leave again, Tar shouted at him, "Remember your people, Kai. Remember your mother." Kai had never known his mother, and his curiosity once again got the better of him. Now, it was not his turn to ask question after question. However, Taurus was not so timid in his answers, and told Kai about his mother's torture, rape, and murder. He went on about the screaming, the whimpering, the retching sobs, and the gunshot. He did not enjoy telling the truth, nor did Kai enjoy hearing the truth. By the end, Kai had made up his mind. He didn't yet know who he would throw his lot in with, but he knew that he must fight against the Germans in any way he could. As Kai started home for good, Taurus yelled one last bit of encouragement. Never forget your roots. Never forget your people's history. Kai felt dedicated to those memories, his country, his people, his mother. He made up his mind. He had to leave. He had to be free. I think I might go ahead and I'll save real quick. I don't know if I really want to min-max all of this, but a little extra support and Jitomir would be nice. Perhaps nowhere else in the country is more reflective of anarchy than Jytomyr. There, nearly every flavor of bandit clashes with both state security forces as well as each other. RK, UNRA, UPA, and the U-SSR are all present in great numbers, and casualties among all sides increase by the day. So does the intensity of the violence. Bandits, of course, know no limits on brutality, and security forces are required to not only respond in kind, but also to escalate in response. This cycle has continued for some time, and despite shocking atrocities inflicted upon the population by the so-called freedom fighters, there appears to be no end in sight. Many claim that the RK is on the verge of collapse, but as the fighting here in the most volatile region shows, state security forces remain committed to protecting the integrity of the administration. Reinforcements have yet been dispatched, and support for garrisons has been increased, but as of yet, none can say whether such aid will prove decisive. As hard as it do so, we must wait for the final reports. So Jytomyr, 10%. Let me look at the numbers right now. 22, 23, 54. Hope that order emerges victorious. And that was the Germans. I don't think I want the Germans with all that power. Because after all, no one man should have all that power. The clock's ticking. I just count the hours. Ironically that I'm quoting Kanye when I'm fighting the Nazis. Just go with it. I hope the order emerges victorious. Same thing again. It might just be hard-coded. I don't know if it is, but it might be one of those things that's just coded. Alright, well... go ahead and distribute some propaganda. I think I might start in Kiev. Start seeing if we can get that secured. There we go. Because I think we'll have a little bit. We'll get some events that increase it over here as well. So I'm not too worried about. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, one of the greatest snipers in the former Soviet Union, stared at the blank page, then at the dull gray sky outside, visible through the window of a ramshackle Donetsk apartment, then at the back page. Heat radiated from her cheeks. Even though she had once attended Kiev University, with dreams of becoming a teacher, being a historian, returning to journaling felt like a step backwards. She got up from her chair and circled like a fox, looking for traps. Why was she doing this? Because her doctor friend had told her that writing might give her some relief, that putting her thoughts on paper might prove some distraction from the Hitlerites, as it made a ruin of her homeland, that it might make her feel less useless when pain pricked through her mangled arm, a reminder of her broken pact and dashed ambitions. What a pathetic thing to do. She might as well pick up cross-stitching like some pathetic, cow-eyed bourgeois woman waiting for her husband to return home from fighting. She gripped the chair tight with her one working hand. She breathed in and then out, counting each exhale she had once done from the safety of her crow's nest. She released her grip. There were, of course, men who kept track of their thoughts and actions. Gramsci had written, even as he rotted in prison. Lenin had too, as his body failed him. Countless Soviet generals had shared their stories after the war. Why was she so haughty as to believe herself superior to all of them? Why was she not regurgitating old, oppressive myths about what was and was not womanly? She forced herself to sit back down and pick up a pen, even as her brain screamed about how stilted her prose was and how shallow her thoughts were. She made herself keep writing. Whether they be Russian, Ukrainian, Tatar, or Jew, all have a place in a Ukraine made free under the Soviet Union. All are welcome. Well, we'll see if all will end up being free in a while. Because I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Thanks as always for watching, my friend. If you like this video, leave a like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you want to see any more of this content, feature hit the sub button for uploads weekdays. as well as occasionally Saturdays. Check out my various links down in the description box below. And yeah, that's it for now, my friends. I'll thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.